Please note that nothing in this podcast should ever be taken as personal financial advice.
And if you are seeking financial advice, reach out as we work with professionals in the industry. And welcome back to another episode of the Finance Bible podcast. We are your hosts. I am Zeke and I'm joined by a fellow co-founder of the Finance Bible, Oscar. Mate, how have you been?
Mate, good to be back for another episode. I think we're up to episode 5 now. Who would have thought? But it's been a busy week. It's good. Thursday afternoon here in Sydney, trying to get out and about in the streets in the sunshine, enjoying the sun when I can.
It is sunny now.
Finally.
It's a big
spring.
change.
It's spring, isn't it? Yeah, it's good.
As of
spring.
today. Yesterday.
But fingers crossed, it is all looking good. Restrictions easing next month. Apparently so. Gyms are opening, as we said last week.
Yep, that's good news. Get the rig in shape.
Restaurants. What else we got? Bars, pubs.
Overseas travel.
That is a topic we need to discuss. Zeke, where are we thinking of going, mate?
We're heading straight to Ibiza, mate. We've got it planned. We'll
That's
be
it.
there in January.
If anyone wants to meet us there, please give us a message and shoot us your itinerary and we'll make sure we come across. But mate, apart from that, what's today's topic?
Mate, we're talking about common mistakes when saving, how to avoid those mistakes and the benefits and risks of them. Dollar cost averaging versus lump sum investing, because we had a couple of good responses to one of our answers on the Monday Q&A for that. Let's jump into it.
Mate, very exciting topic about the saving, because a lot of individuals, especially our age and the younger demographic, everyone believes to just save money and pop it in their bank account, which is a great idea. You know, it is great that you're saving money and putting money aside, but everyone knows on a night out, if you don't have enough money in your everyday account, you dig into your savings.
This is true.
So we're just going to touch on how to minimize that and actually maximize your savings habits. And then before you know it, you'll have enough money in your savings account to purchase those things you want. Deposit for a house, a car.
Mate, with the questions in relation to the dollar cost averaging versus lump sum investing, we had a few respondents asking for a bit more information on that.
Which is good. It shows you guys are actually engaged in wanting to learn a bit more, but it's also good that you're asking these questions, which we actually want you to do, and message us if there's a bit of uncertainty.
Our answer was basically, in theory, lump sum investing can work out a lot better than dollar cost averaging. As in, theoretically, if you're lucky enough to put $100,000 into Bitcoin when it was virtually nothing, and then sold all of it at $50,000, then clearly that's going to be a drastic load of profit.
Yeah.
Now, if you dollar cost averaged the $100,000 into Bitcoin while it was at $50,000, $40,000, then obviously it wouldn't work out as well. So in theory, lump sum investing can work a lot better. However, the actual timing of the market is really difficult. If you're not an expert, it's nearly impossible. So dollar cost averaging on average will actually work out a lot better long term for junior or rookie investors.
Yeah, it's a safer option in a way. But with that being said, if you have done your research on a particular company which you feel as though is going to increase in value from now until whenever you're wanting to sell it, or you just believe it's a good company to invest in, by all means, if you believe that you should put a large sum in, do that. It's completely comes down to research and your every individual's thoughts on the investment. But from a safer perspective and a bit of clarification how it all works, Zeke and myself, we do use dollar cost averaging on a day-to-day basis, and as if we do see a particular company which we like at a pretty
good
cheap
value.
price, good value, we would put a bit of a large sum in there. But it does all come down to research.
Yeah, so for example, pre-COVID, I was dollar cost averaging into a portfolio of about 15 stocks all at once. COVID hit, everything took a bit of a crash, and I realised that was a great opportunity to not dollar cost average and to really lump sum invest in that portion. Yeah, so stocks were dropping between 20 to 40%, and when it was right near its bottom, I threw almost all of my savings into those shares.
But that got you your property.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I got my property, through taking that risk and knowing in that scenario, timing the market wasn't too difficult.
The wait's over, guys. Now we're going to discuss our six common mistakes when saving that we believe all Australians go through from 18 to whenever it is when you're wanting to save. So I'll start with that first factor, which we believe is probably the most important one to eliminate from your everyday living. So that is with your everyday bank account, the account where you spend all your money. So for example, I'm with ING. I have all my transaction cards, which I use. I've got a few different cards for everyday spending. But what I've done is with my savings account, I've actually used a different bank to place all my savings in. So this means that with my savings, if I did want to draw down on some savings on a night out, for example, if I was at a bar and wanting to get a drink and I look at my card and I don't have enough funds.
Too bad, so sad.
Too bad, so sad. But back in the day, I used to have my savings in the same account. So I could easily just transfer 10, 15, 20 bucks over to some other account and happy days, I get that drink. But the thing is, that adds up quite a bit over time. And you don't realize until the next morning or a month later when you look at your bank account and your savings has actually decreased quite substantially, but you've been getting paid and you keep thinking that your savings is going up. But it's not, because every weekend you're jumping into that account. So the number one mistake is having the same savings account as your everyday banking. So we believe that you should open a bank account which is external from, example, ING. I have a savings account with HSBC. So basically what that means is I actually can't draw on those funds. Well, I can, but the transaction time between when I request it is around a few days. So if you're out and you're a big spender on a night out and when you get drunk or whatever, you tuck into the savings, highly recommend getting another account and then you won't have that problem.
Yeah, and with that other account, you want one that doesn't have OSCO, as in a real-time payment platform, because otherwise you can access the funds instantly.
Yeah.
And if you're really struggling to have the discipline not to do it, it might be a good idea to make it an account where you can't withdraw without signing physically at a branch before making a transaction too.
That's a great idea, mate. And those OSCO accounts are generally, we know the big four banks have them. So say you're with CBA, don't go and have a savings account with NAB just because you think you feel good when you do it because you've got a different account. Go a very external left wing type of account, which you actually, like Zeg said, it's almost impossible to take money out instantly.
Yeah, so with my personal savings, I've got a couple of different accounts. I know that I'm disciplined enough where I won't actually access the funds because I account for myself having enough to spend, and I spend diligently. So I've actually got one account for spending, so that's like my groceries, rent, internet, etc. I've got one account for savings, which is like a rainy day protection fund, and I've got one account for investing, and it's as simple as that. I don't let them cross over. My pay splits straight into the three, and then I don't even need to look at them. They just do their own thing. Yeah,
and I think having a few different accounts is absolutely key to building that financial wealth. So when you get paid, if you have a budget, you distribute each percentage into each account. For example, if you're wanting to save a lot of money in a short amount of time, maybe put half of your paycheck in your savings, and then the remaining percentage, divide that by the amount of accounts you have, and just figure out how much you cost per week with groceries, rent, daily expenses, whatever it is. Figure that out and then divide it with all your accounts, because I've been doing that for a few years. And I'm sure you have as well, Zeke.
I have.
And mate, this all comes down to budgeting. So budgeting is actually a key concept with savings. I've actually developed a bit of a budgeting framework on Excel, which we will attach to this podcast link. So if anyone does want to download this framework, which I've been using for a couple of years, please do. Just click on the link, it should be below. And then you put all your information in. It will actually give you a graph as well for your net wealth over time. So you can compare your wealth each month, and it will give you some motivation to actually save a lot of money and see that graph grow over time. Like, it's pretty exciting to see that. But yeah, we'll attach that to the description below, which will be very beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, not sticking to your budget is one huge impeder on getting a large amount of savings. Because obviously, if you don't stick to your budget, you go over it $50 a week. So you get a bit of takeout and you get a couple of beers once a week.
You call it takeout?
Me?
Yeah, you call it takeout.
Take away, take out,
Jeez, all right.
dine out, whatever you want to call it. Well, Uber Eats, mate, it goes nuts. Then, over a whole month, $50 a week's $200, and that's going to be a large impact on savings. If you're missing out on $200 a month, then long term, it's a bad effect.
All right, perfect. I think we've touched on the main mistake. What's the second one we're going to touch on now, mate?
Another mistake when building up your savings, or a common mistake with building up your savings, is actually just leaving the money sitting in the savings account.
In cash.
Now, if you just leave it sitting in cash, chances are, in the current market, it's returning 0.1% or something crap like that, when it could be invested returning 8% to be generous. Now, if you're only returning 0.1% or something minimal like that, you're not even going to be outperforming the inflation amount per year. So, for example, if inflation is going to be 2% for a year and your savings aren't returning 2%, then in theory, you're actually losing money by not outperforming the inflation rate. So that's another important factor to take into account when you are trying to save. You've also got to, if you're just sitting it in the account, you look at it every day and chances are you're going to go, oh, cool, I can go and buy a TV, I can go and buy a car, I can do this, I can do that. And that's actually one of our other common mistakes.
We'll merge that in with 2 and 3.
Correct. So if you leave the money in the account, that's a mistake in itself because you're limiting returns. But you're also then going to do another common mistake, which is saving for a few months and then making a large one-off purchase, like a phone, a TV, or something like that.
But don't get me wrong though, you've saved enough money, so you build that saving habit, but you've literally thrown it all out the window in one purchase for a phone or a TV.
Which we call delayed spending, also known as kicking the tin down the road. Which also is not saving.
That's what we do say in a few meetings to our clients, the good old kicking the tin down the road.
Yeah, and the other major one that we want to touch on, which is a bit laughable really, but saving for a holiday is not saving.
Very controversial topic there, mate. A lot of people, when we did post this, did message us and say, what do you mean saving for holidays and saving? It's
because
saving.
It's literally saving for a holiday. So you are saving, but you're saving to spend, and spending doesn't actually give you any benefit except for going on a holiday.
That's it. Which is great. Everyone wants to now.
Yeah, that's great. We're planning a holiday ourselves, but we've got other savings in line.
Yeah. If you are wanting to save for a holiday, as we said earlier, with ING, for an example, no, I'm not sponsored by ING, but if they do want me to, I will. So create another account in your ING, for an example, which you divide each pay, as we said earlier, to that saving for a holiday account. So it could be $50 a week, could be 30, 20. It all adds up every paycheck to paycheck. But at the same time, you're also building your other savings account. So you're building both accounts, and before you know it, you have enough for that holiday, and you're halfway there, for example, a house deposit or whatever the main thing is you're saving for.
Oscar, mate, we've got some very exciting news today. We've got a surprise coming up. What is it, mate?
Right, exactly right. We have our first special guest for the podcast, a very well-known credit advisor within the industry and one of our colleagues. Raj is his name.
Mr. Karthik.
Mr. Karthik. He'll be talking about his personal experiences with his partner and how they saved up for a deposit for their first property. So he'll be talking to our listeners, from the first step to the last step of how he actually formed a process and the steps needing to obtain that deposit.
Listeners, we're joined here by a fellow colleague and credit advisor who's been in the industry for quite some time now, Mr. Raj Karthik. Mate, tell us what your thoughts are and what your experience is with issues with saving.
Thanks, Zeke. So one of the biggest issues when it comes to savings is that most people tend to make the mistake of having multiple accounts and splitting their income into many small parts, and then finding that they would have to tap into those accounts just to keep up with expenses. So the best thing any one person can do, firstly, is having a budget, because ultimately a budget is a roadmap for you guys to run on. Now, where most people tend to fail with the budget is they become too strict to the budget. Have a degree of flexibility with your budget. Be flexible, but the budget is there for the purpose of guiding you, every day or through your weeks as you come to times where you're like, do I spend this money or not? So it gives you the guidance. It keeps you to your true north. For example, an aeroplane, when you catch a flight, you've got your destination at the end. But if you really look at a flight path, when you start off, it looks like a straight line. But if you look into it closer, it actually deviates left and right as it navigates through the turbulence in the air. So, but because the Boeing aircraft has a GPS that tells it where its destination is, it's still able to come and safely land, at its intended destination. So, and that is what your budget should be. It is your compass that guides you down this path to maximizing your cash flow and minimizing expense along the way. So some practical tips with regards to creating a budget. Split your budget up into 3 parts. So the first part is what you would call your fixed non-discretionary expense. So these are expenses that you can't change and they are fixed and they are monthly. For example, paying medical insurance or paying for your car insurance, paying your rent, etc. The second part is you go for what you'd call a variable discretionary expenses. So these are expenses that you can't avoid, but they can change from month to month. For example, petrol or travel costs, depending on how much you travel, toll, things that you would have to spend money on, and it is what it is, but it can vary from month to month. And the last part to your budget is what you'd call your discretionary expense. So this is where, all the fun and the good stuff comes along. This is having your coffee every morning,
or your soy latte.
Or having soy latte, yeah, exactly. Or going for the breakfast or the lunch with colleagues and mates. So by splitting your budget into these 3 parts, you can then very quickly see how much at a bare minimum every month you need to put aside regardless of what happens to keep the household running, keep things moving along. And then there's your variable non-discretionary expense where again you need to spend money on them, but they can change from month to month depending on usage, etc. So just keeping an eye on that is really important. And then where you could really maximize your savings depending on your goals and objectives is finding out where in your discretionary expense you can cut back in a short to medium term so that you are able to save that deposit or put that extra $5 or $10 towards managed funds or shares through an index fund or a platform you're using. And these three things were critical in my personal experience to how my partner and I managed to save our first deposit. Just the first step we took was just sitting down and coming up with the budget. Actually, let me rephrase. First, sitting down and just seeing where all our money went. So you need to know where you've been before you know where you're going. Yeah. Once you've done that, then put that in terms of a budget that you can understand, that is easy to read. So then you know exactly, where you have flexibility. Now, once you know where you have flexibility, it's much more relaxing. It's not as stressful to stick to a particular number. As long as you're meeting your fixed non-discretionary expense and your variable non-discretionary expense, everything else is just, living life. And, it's at times you make some sacrifices and at times you live it up.
Yeah, one weekend you have fun with the boys and the next weekend you don't go out with the boys and dog them. So that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Dogging the boys. No, that's great, Raj. Do appreciate that, insight into all that.
Very good.
Now, how would you recommend couples kind of look into their savings habits and work everything out in terms of actually saving and then looking to invest or even just keeping expenses to a minimum?
Very good question, Zeke. So when it comes to couples, the first thing is to sort of recognize how times have changed. See, back in the day when our parents or grandparents were sort of growing up, coming along, housing was very affordable. So was cost of living.
And interest rates were really good. 1990, 17.5% return. Happy days.
And plus, as you sort of worked and your skills improved and you were progressing through, your career, you tend to have wage growth as well, year on year, which just meant, every year you were able to afford, more things, have a better quality of life and, do what you really need to do. But fast forward today, a lot's really changed.
Yeah.
Cost of living has really gone up.
Especially here in Sydney.
Mate, I hear Hobart in Tasmania is pretty expensive too.
Who would have thought?
Who would have
There
thought? Yeah. So, look, cost of living, generally speaking, regardless of where you are in Australia or in any of the developed countries in the world, is going up. For example, the cost to buy an iPhone is the same, plus minus a few percentage basis points. Even if you're in the States or even in Australia, or even if you're in India. It still costs the same thing. It still costs a similar amount of money.
Yeah.
So, cost of living, generally speaking, is going up, and so is housing. But what's really happened, if we sort of look at it, is that coming out of the GFC, wages have pretty much gone nowhere. If anything, adjusted for inflation, they've gone backwards. So, when we start thinking about savings, it's just so much harder to do it on a single income. So when you're a couple, the most powerful thing you have is working together as a team. So if couples who are listening to this podcast, the best thing you can do is come together as a team, have your budget as a couple, and plan your budget around a single income. So that the other partner who's generating, even if it's 20% less than the main breadwinner, or 30%, it's okay. It's still a decent amount of savings. And put almost everything you can that your partner's generating into your savings account.
And this is exactly what you did to get your first property. Correct me if I'm wrong. With
Your
partner.
Yeah, absolutely, Oscar. So when I met my missus, we were pretty serious. We had a bit of a plan, what we wanted to achieve in a certain period of time. And the only way we could do it is by working together as a team.
Awesome.
Now, I recognized, personally, I'm a bit of a spender.
On those Korean drinks, mate.
and naturally, my missus was a lot more disciplined than I was, and she could save a lot of money.
Which is good.
Which was fantastic. So I just used my strengths, which, I was good with budgeting and understanding cash flow analysis and all of that. And I liked the idea of spending, and she liked the idea of saving. So all we did is budget. Yeah, and all we did was we budget our lifestyle around my income, and every dollar she earned, we just put it away. So within 2 years, 2.5 to close to 3 years, we were able to save a decent amount of a deposit, where we could put a 20% plus cost down for a Sydney home.
It all started with that dinner table conversation.
Absolutely.
That conversation needs to be had, and it's very important in building the savings account.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm no relationship expert, but at times it's not practical, it's not feasible. So when you're a couple, I guess it's also important recognizing your strengths in your relationship and just working with your strengths and complementing each other.
Mate, a lot of the listeners are a bit younger and single. What do you think for individuals who are single and don't have a partner yet to sacrifice one income? What kind of ways, apart from budgeting, would you go down that path?
Savings?
Yeah, savings wise.
Be a hustler.
Love it.
Work hard.
So is that a side hustle or?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there was a point in time when I was really young. I was in uni, but I had like 2 jobs.
Yeah.
I did 15-hour days from time to time, but that I was able to just sort of I worked crazy hours, and it was hard, and I had a goal in terms of a savings amount I needed to do traveling, and I needed to raise $5,000 in 10 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
No, that's
start hustling
in 3 months. I just worked 2 jobs.
That's very impressive.
And I just saved.
Yeah.
So, look, the best way to save is, 1, improve your cash flow. which means,
of course.
look, whatever income you're on, if it sort of just covers your fixed non-discretionary and variable non-discretionary, then just find something else. Like these days, it's quite, in the gig economy that we currently live in, it's actually quite easy to generate some side income. You know, yes, we're going through a pandemic, but hey, guess what? One of the biggest boom has been door-to-door delivery of
delivery drivers. Yeah, that's what I did when I returned from America after 3 months. Didn't have a job lined up. Did Uber Eats for a few months. But mind you actually make a bit of money from it, so it's a good idea for a little side hustle.
Exactly. You could go on to platforms like Fiverr. You may have a particular skill that someone needs.
Or even drop shipping on Amazon or whatever it is.
Look, I don't know much about drop shipping. Maybe you guys do. But look, if that's a skill set you have, just ask yourself, what is your skill set? What can you do different? Exactly. And you can
again, it's what you were saying earlier. Play to your skills and strengths.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, sorry to go back, but what you mentioned before with working the 2 jobs and doing uni and everything, working hard and really putting in the effort at a young age, I've noticed in successful people is quite vital. For example, you did that with uni. When I was in high school, I was working at 3 a.m. Trying to get some money in. Oscar did it from a very young age too. So that's another important thing to actually building up that long-term wealth and getting savings ahead of the game.
It's also building the habits as well.
The other thing is, guys, like the reason I worked like crazy and saved money is because I wanted to travel.
Yeah.
I just wanted to explore, do my own thing, and that's freedom in a way is the most probably powerful thing you can experience. Just recognizing that the power is within you. You can decide what you want, and you can go for it. So look, I worked like crazy, I saved like crazy, and then I spent it all like crazy.
That's what we spoke about before. Saving for holidays and saving.
True, but hey, those memories you'll never get back.
That
they
is
are
true.
priceless.
Yeah.
So
now, when you did that, were you still saving some money on the side as well, knowing that
Different
you're going
account.
to save for a holiday, but you're also saving to invest?
Yeah, of course. I had a couple of those accounts where I had a holiday account, a holiday for investment. So some of the things I tried is I looked at marketing, and I was pretty keen on developing a business structure, a therapeutic nutraceutical business in Singapore.
It's a bit different to what you're doing now, mate.
Yeah, it's very, very different
to the whole 360.
Yeah.
It's a long path, big journey.
I guess what I realized through that experience was I was always interested in business, but in any business, cash flow is also important.
Yeah.
So is
Cash is king.
Cash is king. So savings is a big part of that. So yeah, look, savings has always given me a lot of opportunities. By saving money, it's always given me opportunities and experiencing different things in life.
Raj, mate, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast to give your insights in savings. I'm sure everyone will benefit from what you have said.
Yeah, mate, thanks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It does bring us to the end of the podcast, though. So next week, we're talking about some of our favourite personal development books. Join us for that one. And until then,
keep budgeting, keep investing, keep listening.
That's it, mate. See you guys. Thank you,
guys.